in college, I took a part-time job at one of our local on-campus supermarkets. It was my responsibility there to stock the shelves. It wasn't backbreaking labor, but by the time my evening shift would arrive, there were invariably a number of heavy cardboard boxes that would need breaking down. I had to work to keep my hands clean as they often got cuts from the rough edges. And I came to appreciate greatly those who were working there full-time. To a person, their hands were toughened, calloused, their muscles strong. Breaking boxes can be a tough job. Many of us are well acquainted with our society's tendency to put things in a box. As a species, we like order. The trouble comes when we become restrictive in our interpretation of people or situations that are more nuanced. Breaking down the boxes of our preconceived notions or of how so-and-so should be or behave. Breaking down those boxes can be a tough job. In our passage for this morning, we read that Jesus visits the home of a woman named Martha. In keeping with the hospitality codes of that time, Martha begins to make preparations for her guests, presumably readying some food and drink for her travelers. This was very in-the-box behavior, expected, well understood. Then enters Mary. Rather than helping her sister, Mary sits at Jesus' feet, and she listens to his teachings. Martha gets distracted, we are told, by the work that is in front of her, and she asks Jesus to put Mary in her box, or in her place. But Jesus responds with, Martha, Martha, you are worried, distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. All right, a quick show of hands here. Who among you tends to be a Martha, a doer, always running around, making sure people feel welcome, getting stuff done? I see some hands. Okay. That doesn't sound at all familiar to others. Who identifies with Mary, who tends to be the more contemplative, type B, letting things come as they come type of person? I'm seeing Bruce's hand and Wayne's hand. All right, maybe it's musical. Oh, I'm seeing a few others. Okay, great. So this is the classic dichotomy, right, between the type A and the more laid-back sort of person. When I was serving as a hospital chaplain, our department once reflected upon this passage together, and we talked about our Martha tendency to be busy, to fix the pain we encountered in our patients and families, while instead God might be calling some of us to be more like Mary, to listen with calm ears, to know that these things are not in our control, to know that we just need to be okay with sitting with the feelings. All of these reflections have their corner in the box of truth, and yet there's a temptation to reduce the mystery that we find in the scriptures into basic, simple, easy to live by moral lessons in a box. For more details on that, see Rob's wonderful gathering that will be after church today, where we'll be exploring this more together. But it would be so easy to reduce this story to a very simple, okay, Jesus wants us to be more like Mary, so let's pray more and try to slow down in our lives. Sure thing, let's check that off the list, right? I tend to believe that Jesus and God and the scriptures are more expansive than this. There might be more to the story. Perhaps this story can actually be a bit box-breaking, a bit topsy-turvy. Mary is, in fact, taking the place of a man by sitting at Jesus' feet, which would hardly have gone unnoticed by those around her. There's a boundary being crossed here, a box being broken. Martha tends to get the bad rap, right? And you can even see it on our bulletin cover. If you haven't seen that, take a look at your bulletin cover right now. Check out the picture there. We see Mary looking all happy right near Jesus, and Martha has this scowl on her face. She's so frustrated. Okay. However, let us remember the societal box that both women were placed in. I'm inclined to think that Martha's response is pretty understandable. She might have been tired. She might have been irritated with her. Perhaps she was aware of the finger pointing and the gossiping that would ensue. Do you see what that woman is doing there? Who's keeping her in line? Breaking boxes is a tough job for the person who does it, and it often has ramifications for the people closest to the box breakers as well. If we are loud and prophetic, chances are our families are seen in a certain light. That's the household that believes X. That's the family who spoke up at the town meeting. Probably wasn't the whole family, right? It was one person. The time I take off for rest and renewal as my Mary side can kick in means that Kevin has to pick up more work around the house and tend to our children. Whatever we choose to do to break the box tends to shed light on the people around us as well. So Jesus sees some of this, I believe, and his response is gracious. He says that Mary has chosen the better part. But I think he listens and understands where Martha is too. Reading it from the Greek original language, it reads as more of a pastoral, hey, Martha, don't worry so much kind of response. He's not chastising her here. So there's something in this passage about personality type, right? But there's something about discipleship too. It can be easy to rail at the world and want to tear down all of the unjust boxes we see. There is holiness in that response. We are followers of the Jesus who overturned the temple tables. Sometimes when we think of Jesus, we think of him in that way, the one who shouted about people being broods of vipers and all that good stuff. But the Jesus we see here in the Martha-Mary passage is just as prophetic. Prophetic voices can also be a pastoral, gentle nudge, saying, yes, this is a box that needs to be broken in the culture and in you. Some prophets shout their truth from the mountaintops, but some prophets accompany people on the hike, on the journey, so that they can get to the mountaintop as well. There is time and space for each form of ministry, for railing and for gentle accompaniment, and for everything in between too. Jesus is only caution here, and this, I believe, is at the crux of the story. It is more gentle than harsh, and it is that however we do our work, may we not become distracted. So I don't know about y'all, but I think it's pretty easy for me to get distracted these days. In addition to my work here with you all, I also have my work at Yale. I'm a mom to 2 young children, one of whom has special needs, and just for good measure, I'm currently looking down the road of my personal journey to next month, where I will begin my doctorate at Duke Divinity School. All right. So there are loads of times I'm a Martha, rushing around from one thing to the next, making sure to do it all as well as possible, to present myself as the perfect host and holder of all things. Let me get everything ready for you, Jesus, as you enter my home. I can fully appreciate how busy things can become, and the countercultural, topsy-turvy challenge of saying, whoa, I need to slow my roll here. I am being called in this moment to sit at the feet of Jesus, to rest, and to soak in my beingness for a while, rather than doing. So I lean into my Mary. Some of you know that I'm a contemplative person at heart. I truly am. And there are times I find myself resting, breaking that cultural box of always needing to be productive that our world likes to laud so often. But if I do this for too long, it's also, in a strange way, box creating, because there is still work to do. There are still injustices to be made. There is still food to be prepared for the people. So the truth is, that the Martha-Mary dichotomy I set up a few minutes ago is completely false. It's a box that needs to be broken down. Instead of one or the other, there's actually a Martha and a Mary inside of all of us. Both identities have their place, and both have their gifts and their shadow sides. Jesus' teaching here is not to lift up one over the other. It is to do both with mindfulness and without word. Beloved children of God, as you continue down the journey that lies in front of you this summer, which boxes do you find in your way? Are they external boxes of patriarchy, heteronormativity, white privilege, deep injustices that have been embedded in our culture for so long? Are they boxes our culture has imposed upon you, though? Boxes of Martha-like busyness being connected to your self-worth? Or boxes of identity or expression where, like Mary, you can only act or look a certain way? Are they boxes of discipleship, boxes of call, where you say, I always thought I would work at this company, be productive in this way in my job, so I have to pursue that, when another vocation might be poking at your spirit? Which box are you looking at? Which box is God calling you to break down in our culture and in your souls? As we break down our boxes, sometimes tearing them with our tender hearts but calloused hands used for the hardness of living in this world, here's another question. What is being put up in its place? In your ministry, for we are all ministers, right? Are you helping others break down their boxes and perhaps see a new potential thing taking its place? One final story for you all today, another one about boxes. A number of years ago, I had the wonderful opportunity to lead a mission trip with youth to Toronto. We were working with the homeless there, among other things. But one day we were taken to a large industrial kitchen where we were given a stack of collapsed food boxes, much like the kinds you'd see in a Costco, big boxes. Our job was to put them together and to tape them. But hang on, don't get started, folks, as we Marthas started doing our stuff. We'll bring in the people who are going to teach you how to put these boxes together correctly. They didn't know how true they were. In came a slew of differently abled individuals, all of whom were paid a fair wage to do this work. They relished in teaching us the very best ways to put these boxes together. How much tape, where to put it down, which seams to connect, how tightly to connect them. It was a beautiful experience for youth and adults alike. It was breaking down our own boxes of misconceptions and false assumptions. And it was creating new containers in a new community. Finding new ways of putting things together in a spirit of inclusion and welcome. Finding ways in our spirit not to compartmentalize or confine, but to include more big inner containers to be filled to overflowing with all the things God wished to place there. And breaking down boxes can be a tough job. Building up new and better replacements from a place of centeredness and calm, doing and being, not being distracted. Martha and Mary. That is the way of Christ. As you continue on your journeys this summer, both outer and inner, may you find your own Mary-Martha balance. Topsy-turvy, though it almost certainly will be. May we all find a way to both do and be without distraction, breaking boxes in our own prophetic way and in our own voices, and then may we find the strength to build up new, spacious, expansive containers, centered and grace-filled, inside of yourselves, for all that God wishes for us to carry. carrying that impact into the world, wherever you may go. May it all be so. In the name of God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit.